All right, hello U.S. history students and happy spring break. My intention for this video is that it can be a short conclusion of what we learned about with Franklin Roosevelt and the New Deal. And so maybe you're sitting on a beach somewhere right now, maybe you've got a bucket of popcorn, or you just baked yourself a big pan of brownies. I don't know, whatever. Find something to eat, make yourself comfy, let's finish these ideas so that we can come back at the end of spring break ready to kind of analyze and assess them. So our learning target is to continue the same learning target as before. I can explain how New Deal programs stretched traditional economic policy, and we're looking at the proper role of government in American life. So a big idea is that things just were really changing, right? Franklin Roosevelt, pictured here, by the way, one of his rare photographs of him in his wheelchair. He didn't want that to be the image of him, and nor did his administration, but so there you go. But Franklin Roosevelt transformed the presidency more than any other president in American history. And he transformed the expectations. He stretched the size of government. He stretched Americans' expectations for what their government would be, for what their president would do, more than any president before him and more than any president since him. We're still kind of living in FDR's shadow, for better or for worse. And, you know, I'll say I'm not fully comfortable with all these changes, right? That's okay. I doubt anyone who teaches history is fully comfortable with all these changes. You know, in his defense, Roosevelt is going to be tasked with two mammoth crises that both threaten the future of the United States of America, right? The Great Depression and World War II. And so I'm going to offer that up in his defense, that he's pushing for profound change in the face of big dangers. But we're still going to ask ourselves, like, what do we make of this? And is there rightful cause to be really worried or to push back on some of these things? So let's jump back into where we were. Oh, also, let me remind you, there is a scrapbook that goes with all these New Deal programs. This is going to create a really, really, really useful piece to help you prepare for your essays. And so, you know, if you can be filling this in as we go along in this video, that might be smart to do that. All right. Social Security is probably the biggest New Deal program of them all. It arrives somewhat late in the whole process, right? So he's been president for a couple of years here before Social Security. There's a major push for this. And Social Security is it's something that's still around today. I suppose it's like FDIC or something like that. I mean, some New Deal programs have long disappeared, but this one has hung around. And in fact, this is it's still a pretty massive part of what the government does and what our government spends its money on. The idea of Social Security, you might know this, is to provide a pension or retirement money for Americans who are age 65 and older. Social Security, as it was originally designed, also people who are eligible also include widows, like this advertisement here. It's more security for the American family. The widow of a qualified worker gets monthly benefits. So it's like pension money to live on. Americans with disabilities receive Social Security checks. And that still is the case. My wife works with adults with disabilities, and their primary income, unless their family has some money, their primary income is Social Security money from the United States government. And the reason why FDR pushes for this is, again, in general, the idea of a broader safety net. He says the Great Depression showed us how necessary it is to have a wider safety net to catch the most vulnerable and marginalized people in society. And who is more vulnerable than our elderly who can't go back to work? It's one thing to tell a person who had a job that they lost, a job that they have to go back, they're going to get back to work, we're going to help them get back to work. But what about someone who's 70 years old and can't get back to work? What are they supposed to do? When those banks failed, they lost their savings, they lost their retirement money. It was wiped out. What are they supposed to do is the argument, right? We need to have something secure and insured to be there for people, right? And so this retirement money will be there for them. And it is deeply popular with the public. All right, like I'll just say Social Security has never been an unpopular program. Its popularity is not the problem with Social Security. If there's a problem with Social Security, is that today it's insolvent. Like it spends out way more money than it takes in, and there's a bunch of complicated reasons for that. But like, it's a problem in that like it leaks money really badly. The whole idea is every month you put in. In my paycheck, or you guys if you work, like there's a Social Security tax and that gets paid out to people who are currently retired, like my parents. They get Social Security money in, and then when it's my turn to retire, then I will sort of receive that tax money from people, and it sort of is adjusted for inflation over time. It's just in financial distress right now. Conservative critics of Social Security back then, and for a while afterwards too, sort of said, you got to be real careful here because this is now government money going directly to individuals. And it's like the don't feed the bears sign at the zoo. You start handing out money to individuals, even if it's sort of folks on the margins, right, or who are in need, like widows or the elderly. Okay, yes, I get it. But the moment you start handing out money to people, there's going to be a whole lot more bears sort of like circling up and saying, "What about me? What about me?" And that's like a concern that gets grappled with here. But it's fair to say this is something FDR believed in deeply, and it's something that Americans today hold on tight to, and we wrestle with like, it's like we can't pay for this forever. Like it is running out of money so rapidly because the baby boomer generation is retiring, because Americans live longer than they used to. I mean, back in the days, the life expectancy was 68. So it's like, you'll pay out Social Security payments from age 65 to 68 for the average person. But now the average life expectancy is 78. Or my wife's grandma just died at age 90. My grandma passed away recently at age 93. People live longer and they're collecting more and more Social Security checks. And so it's like this system can't keep paying out in the same way. It's a grapple, right? It's like we can see the need for it. We can see why FDR did it. But it's also like the money is a challenge here. The Tennessee Valley Authority, the TVA, another really interesting one here, where it's basically there's nothing really too scientific about it or too like complex about it. The basic idea is this: we're going to take a poor part of the country, a rural, poor section of hill country, basically, kind of Appalachia region, and we are going to provide better electricity for them. All right, so they build all these hydroelectric dams through the Tennessee River Valley area, the area highlighted there in green. And with these hydroelectric dams that will produce electricity, that will also generate silt, or silt will get caught at the bottom of this reservoir. Silt is that super fertile soil. We'll dredge up that silt and we will make fertilizer out of it, right? So it will produce some economic activity here. Now, this wouldn't happen with just private enterprise, private companies. There isn't enough capital in this part of the country. And frankly, private companies weren't going to make enough money in this poor rural part of the country doing this themselves. And so the government just says, well, we'll do it. And maybe we won't make any money. In fact, we're definitely not going to make any money. We'll probably lose money on this endeavor, but we'll be providing electricity to rural folks who need it, who really, the whole Roaring 20s thing, they never really got to experience the Roaring 20s, right? They're still living back in the 1890s, technologically in many ways. We'll help them catch up. If there were private energy companies in the region, well, they're going to go out of business because they can't keep up with a government subsidized program like the TVA. The TVA doesn't need to make a profit, right? It doesn't even need to break even. It's just like government can sort of throw money at it wherever they need it. And so some people said, well, this is socialism, right? This is like driving private companies out of business and the government's kind of taking over here and providing it for everybody. But other folks said, well, in a depression, this is providing jobs as we're building hydroelectric dams, and then it provides cheap energy to people who need it. And Roosevelt says, this is good politics. Southerners are part of my coalition. I want to reward them, and I want them to know, you keep voting for Roosevelt. Rural folks, part of my coalition. I want to reward them and saying, you keep voting for me, right? So FDR understands the politics of this and says, this is a really good, you could say a giveaway or benefit or whatever word, however cynical you want to be about this. But the TVA is just like, we'll move in and we'll provide this for these people, and we're providing some jobs, and maybe it's not, run like a private business, and maybe some private businesses go out of business, but that's fine, right? This is sort of benefiting some people who need it. The National Recovery Administration, the NRA. Some of you have been waiting all year for me to bring up the NRA, and then I bring up the NRA and it's the wrong NRA. But the NRA, the original NRA is this, the National Recovery Administration. And this one, of all of them, of all the New Deal programs, might have been the nearest and dearest to FDR's heart in certain ways. The NRA is in my experience, it's been one where a lot of students are like, I wonder what I think about that. So let me explain it to you and let you start thinking about, what do I think about that? The NRA said is like a way to try to get prices for goods and wages for workers and production of goods to a level that the government wants it to be at if the free market does not want it to be at that. During a depression, the free market is trying to say nobody's buying, so you need to cut the prices of goods, bring the prices of goods down to make them cheaper so people start buying again. But when the prices of goods go down and the companies don't make as much money, then they also bring down the wages. And so the free market is saying bring wages down, bring prices down. That's what the market is sort of, the free market stimulus is saying. What the government wanted is for prices to go up and wages to go up, for people to make more money so that they could buy more stuff and businesses could stay in business. So if the free market isn't going to tell prices and wages to stay up, then maybe we can start this thing called the NRA that sort of convinces or encourages businesses to do this. And so what we'll say is, if your business can become a member of the NRA, right? And like this business here, it says it's a card, NRA member. We hereby certify that a representative for the sale of merchandise distributed by Kingham Brothers. So this is like, I think this is Kingham Brothers, I think was a textiles or like a clothing company. It's like Kingham Brothers gets this certificate because they are going along with NRA regulations. And the NRA says, we would like you to set the price of your suit at this. All right, and if it's a women's dress that goes blah, 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 the price should be that. Again, don't look at your competition. If you got competition across the street selling for something else, don't look at them. We want you to look at what the NRA asks you to do this. And for your workers, your tailors, we want you to pay them this. Don't think about the competition or the quality of that stuff. Think about what the NRA is asking you to do. So like we want to sort of be smarter than the market. The NRA says these government bureaucrats are going to be smarter than the free market and set it where we need it to be to get out of the depression. Now critics were like, this is bizarre. We're sort of telling people that to be members in good faith or to be patriotic, they need to sort of be part of this club that, you know, follows government orders on how much they charge for whatever, a can of Coke or a suit or a chicken or whatever the good is. Like they have to follow these rules. Like this seems odd. Why is the government getting involved on this micro level, right? This seems more like a socialist government running of an economy than like a capitalist free market system. Or those critics said, like, how are, you know, a whole bunch of bureaucrats with clipboards going to know what the appropriate price is today for a gallon of gasoline, right? Or for, you know, for a women's dress suit. Or for Diet Coke for that matter. Like let the businesses feel the competition. The businesses can have the deepest, keenest sense of this. Let them decide it. But the NRA, you know, to FDR, listen to this quote. He said, the NRA, it is the most important attempt of this kind in history. As in the great crisis of the World War, meaning World War I, it puts a whole people to the simple but vital test. Must we go on in many groping, disorganized, separate units to defeat, or shall we move as one great team to victory? Woodrow Wilson beehive thinking. Guys, let's coordinate, let's work together, right? If we all work together and we follow the government's regulations on prices or wages, then we think we can get out of this depression. And so like this image, this restaurant owner proudly puts out the sign that says, we do our part, we follow NRA regulations. So when you order a cup of coffee, the NRA has determined what the price of that cup of coffee will be. If you order, you know, bacon and eggs, that's NRA approved price for the bacon and eggs, and that waitress there is making an NRA approved wage for this. And that's how we're going to get out of this. Like it was sold as your patriotic duty is to follow the regulations of the NRA. Well, this gets thrown out. The Supreme Court, it doesn't last long. So Roosevelt is like, this is the greatest effort of government coordination that we've ever done, and it's our path out of the Depression. And the Supreme Court says the executive branch of government has no such power to regulate interstate commerce to this degree. Yes, government can regulate interstate commerce, but this is all run by the executive branch, And the micromanaging going on here is too much. The case that actually made its way to the Supreme Court is called the Schlechter brothers case. It's a couple Jewish brothers in New York who run a chicken shop where you can buy live chickens. I mean, this is just a teeny tiny kind of operation, right? And they're competing with like other vendors on the street for chickens. And some NRA bureaucrat had come in and said, you're selling those chickens there are too cheap. You can't sell chickens for that low a price. And the Schlechter brothers say, well, these chickens are sick. And so we're just telling people, if you want to buy a sick chicken, you can buy those chickens at that price. And the NRA says, well, you can't sell chickens at that low a price. And it goes to court. And you end up in the Supreme Court of the United States arguing about what the price of a sick chicken should be. And the Schlechter brothers were just saying, wait, we just tell people if you want to buy a sick chicken, you can buy those and it's $2 cheaper or whatever the price is. And the court's like, this is too much. This is too much micromanaging. This is too much government involvement. And they throw it out. And FDR and New Dealers are really frustrated by this, really frustrated by these plans getting thrown out. And that leads actually to FDR's perhaps biggest political misstep, or at least the misstep that in his own day, Americans looked at him and said, whoa, time out, what are you doing here? So what happened is, in the wake of the NRA being ruled unconstitutional, or at least parts of it, and the Agricultural Adjustment Act is also ruled unconstitutional. So it's like the Supreme Court is taking a lot of his New Deal plans and saying, can't do that. And this one, you can't do that. And the Supreme Court is more conservative than FDR for sure, and many New Dealers for sure. Frustrated with that dynamic, and overconfident from winning re-election easily in 1936, we'll tell that story later, FDR announces this big new plan. Hey, America, I got a great new move coming up here. There are currently 9 members on the Supreme Court, and we're going to add 6 more. All right, we're going to move it to 15 members of the Supreme Court. And, no reason in particular, he says, it's just a good way to get some younger blood on the court. And everyone is looking at this saying, that's crazy. You're going to appoint 6 Supreme Court members like right now, and you're going to pick people that are more friendly to you, right? And you just don't want to deal with the Supreme Court that's unfriendly to you, right? It's like the president shaping to too strong a degree the Supreme Court. It's like there's one branch of government right now that's checking the other 2. The Supreme Court was checking the president and the legislative branch, and the president and FDR is saying, I don't like that, right? So I'm going to add 6 members to the Supreme Court. And the public, which likes FDR, by the way, FDR is popular. The public is like, no, bad move, not democratic. This is not checks and balances. This is a power grab, right? And this cartoon here is sort of the joke that like FDR says, all right, all together now, and all the new justices say yes. And meanwhile, the Constitution and justice is thrown in the garbage bin, right? So it's a little hyperbolic. But the public was just like, buddy, no, this is too much. And FDR recognizes, he's smart and perceptive. He recognizes, oh, I might have stepped in a pile of poop there, and so never mind. And he just pulls that plan and drops it. And he kind of gets the last laugh anyway when some of the older, more conservative justices retire, and he's able to replace them with people he likes anyway. So, but FDR, he would do power grabs. He was very comfortable with acquiring more power. Let's put it that way. And he certainly tried for it here. And the only thing stopping him was the public saying that's too far. So yeah, there is an ungraded practice quiz you can try if you want to make a run at that. That's fine. You don't have to. But that was our material. That's our New Deal lesson here, guys. I thank you for listening over the break. I hope you enjoyed the popcorn or the brownies or whatever you had. And yeah, I'll see you guys when we get back. Take care.